We made a music streaming service called Audio.
Like Spotify?
Like Spotify. 2012, there wasn't Spotify.
Exactly. That was like really early.
Okay. One of the things that, again, we didn't understand the market was 2012, 2014, 3G internet.
3G internet. Oh my god.
People were using Blackberries, not much people were using iPhones.
iPhone back then, yeah.
The focus should be on how to protect the creator to make sure they make the best use of their IP, they make the best decisions on the IP, and they focus on people that want to pay. I think that's there. I mean, the highest level that we could achieve is becoming that creator VC company I was talking about, where the creators had advanced enough to become their own IP companies. Then we invest in those IP, basically.
Okay. Hello everyone, this is Ray from Nalar Bicara. Today we have a very special guest from Karyakarsa. His name is Mas Ario.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, awesome office, man.
Thank you for that. It's we're lucky, basically.
Yes.
Thank you so much for coming today.
Of course, my pleasure.
I've heard so much about you and Karyakarsa.
All bad, I hope.
No. It was amazing. I think Karyakarsa has been like a leading platform, Indonesian leading platform for people to sell contents.
Yeah.
Right. Like I think at one time I bought a comic and a novel from there.
Oh, nice. I need to check you on how's the UX later.
I think it's a super cool idea in my opinion, and I think a lot of content creators really needs your type of platform for them to continue on with their passion, right? But let's start from the beginning, right?
Sure.
So I heard this is your third endeavor,
That's
third
correct.
startups. What happened for the first two?
Okay, so maybe moving a bit back.
Yeah.
My career was initially in the entertainment industry, so corporate.
Yep.
Universal Music.
Oh,
I worked for Detik.com. Worked for BHD Vietnam, it's a cinema and movie production company.
Yep.
So I learned a lot about entertainment
Yep.
at those companies, which brought me to the point where I need to level up my career and learn to start my own business. This was in 2012.
2012.
Yeah.
Okay.
And with my friends, we made a music streaming service called Audio.
Like Spotify?
Like Spotify. 2012, there wasn't Spotify.
Exactly. That was like really early.
Literally.
Okay.
There were some sites if you remember, there was a site called Groove Shark, so we were similar to Groove Shark.
Yep.
But legal. Groove Shark wasn't legal.
Wasn't legal.
But the idea was having a good representation of Indonesian music on the internet. At that point, there wasn't any.
Yep.
There were only pirated, concert videos, bootleg videos on YouTube, the sort of things.
Yeah.
And
Or coming from radio where you
yes,
press
exactly.
the red button.
Exactly. So YouTube wasn't as established as today as representing music.
Yep.
No Spotify in the market.
Yeah.
There was only iTunes Music downloads. Apple Music was
Where you have to pay 99 cents
yes,
a
exactly.
piece.
So the vision was having a streaming service where you just make your own playlist or follow some other playlists. I think it's a pretty standard concept now, but back in 2012, it's pretty new.
Like amazing.
Yes, and we tried to sell the playlists to brands to pay for the service.
Okay.
In our idealism and arrogance, of course, we didn't know enough about the market.
Yeah.
We didn't do proper research about the market, and we didn't really understand what would labels pay for. Sorry, not labels, the brands.
The brands, yeah.
Well, the labels want money from us, of course. They want minimum guarantee, licensing fee, that sort of thing. So we tried to get that for them, but we realized that wasn't sustainable business model, paying minimum guarantees to labels every year.
Oh.
So we switched to an online radio model where it's predefined playlists instead of people making their own playlists. So we pioneered the model where you could choose your playlist based on your mood. So we created a lot of playlists based on happy, sad, heartbroken, or sort of things. But I think one of the things that, again, we didn't understand the market was 2012, 2014, 3G internet.
3G internet. Oh my god.
People were using Blackberries. Not much people were using iPhones.
iPhone back then. Yep.
Android was really crappy back then, if you remember.
Yep.
So the only viable option for people to use audio was at the office or at home.
Okay.
And at the office, streaming would eat up the bandwidth because bandwidth was also expensive then.
Back then.
And then the offices would just, what's this?
Whose computer was this?
They just blocked the domain, that sort of thing. So, in hindsight, there were a lot of mistakes that could have come up if we did proper market research and consumer research. But at the end of the day, it failed basically.
Okay. After how many years that you were doing it?
Too long.
Too long. Like what?
I think we should have stopped like in year 3 when we still weren't making money.
Okay.
But
you continue on until
we tried to find new models until year 8.
8 years.
8 years.
Oh wow! And that was without any external investments.
We did have some seed investment from VC.
Yep.
But I think VCs today and VCs in 2012, they have a better, different knowledge.
Yep.
2012, they were still learning about the market
Pretty
as well.
new.
And they're just making bets left and right.
Yeah.
So it was surprising that they actually invested in us. So. But I guess it was part of their school money as well.
Yep.
So
it's their business models.
Yeah, we did some funding. We basically burned all that money.
Yep.
We tried to get some B2B clients on board, but at the end of the day, nothing worked. And okay, that's it.
So that's the year 8 where you kind of come up to conclusions. Okay, that's not happening.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think the conclusion was actually at year 4, but I was too stubborn to realize.
Right. I see. Okay, and then that was your first one, and then the second one.
The second one was run in parallel, actually.
In parallel.
Yeah. So
on year 4 when you
on year 1 also.
On year 1.
So I do not recommend that to anyone either. So it was actually a spin-off from a digital agency company owned by my friend. Yeah. So he said, okay, I need a CEO to run this. So I came in with a deal that, okay, I run this company, but I have this other thing on the side running as well. So that one was an event tech company. So,
event tech.
So if in those years you went to an event and got an RFID wristband, you tap and you take picture and it'll upload to your social media.
Okay.
That was us.
Okay.
We were the first company to do that in Indonesia. And basically that was the gimmick part, and we shifted towards guest management information systems for events like registration, IDs, and stuff like that.
So it's like an operating system for
the events. That's correct.
So your customers must be like an EO company.
That's correct.
Yeah,
that's correct. Okay. So that company was bootstrapped. It was relatively profitable depending on cash flow and stuff like that. But I guess I didn't know enough to find out how it could grow further. Okay. Or I was too careful or didn't have the guts to push it further. And suddenly at year 8 also, a company was run by some friends said, okay, I want to acquire Woozin. What's going to take to make that up? Okay, take, please.
Oh, wow, so you sold the second company.
Yes. Wasn't a really big number, and still
an exit, right?
Yeah, we got an exit. Awesome. I got an exit for my partners, and that was the time where I was already starting to work on the idea for Karyakarsa.
Oh, I think it's a good segue to come across to Karyakarsa after year 8 of your there's 2 companies, right?
Yeah.
So Karyakarsa is seen as a key platforms for creators. What's the aha moments here? Because you were at the time you mentioned that your working on 2 startups, right? What was the aha moment like, oh, okay, I think this can work?
There wasn't an exact aha moment, but since I stopped one startup and was considering on leaving the other, if we didn't get that offer, I was considering, okay, what next to do? And I started to work on ideas. One was kind of like a consulting brand, but more to peer-to-peer. The brand was called Bantu Mikir, if you've heard of it.
Okay.
So more like peer-to-peer consulting. So we help each other through discussion, rather than
like throwing ideas.
Rather than a McKinsey model consulting. So because I thought that kind of model would actually help a lot more people rather than the usual business consulting model. So there was the idea of making a creative VC. So
creative VCs.
Yeah, but I didn't know anything about VCs back then. So
VCs as in venture capital.
Yes.
But specific for creative.
Yes. Okay. I've already been thinking about crowdfunding for creative artists.
Yeah.
And Patreon in the US was a model that I was always looked at as something that might work, but not exactly in Indonesia.
Okay.
And so I started work on all 3 ideas. And I didn't get anything done on the VC thing because if you ask me about VC today, I still don't know much about it. So I think that's a different game.
Yeah, completely.
But I discussed the creative fans funding creators idea with my late partner Arya.
Yeah.
And the idea was make it for musicians, because I was thinking on why audio failed, the streaming service failed, and the answer was it wasn't solving a problem basically. It was just another iteration of music distribution. So what's a big problem in the music business? And I came upon the realization after talking to a lot of people that, well, most musicians don't get paid. And as we discussed before this, I also wanted to become a musician, but I wasn't allowed by my parents after high school. So, because of course, most musicians don't make money. Even the popular ones, they don't.
Only a fraction.
Only a fraction. The others have side businesses, or they have an office job and so on. So why not make a platform where people with a lot of followers, these musicians have a lot of followers, where they can activate their fans to give them money in return for exclusive content, blah blah blah. And I discussed with Arya, and he said, "Hey, that would work for all types of creators, not just musicians."
Right.
And that was basically the aha moment. Okay.
Yeah.
Then we did some research, and then we did an MVP in June 2019, which was basically introducing, hey, this is Karyakarsa. We want to help creators get money from their fans. If you like the concept, please give us money. That was MVP.
That was it. Yeah, that was MVP.
And it was basically a WordPress website connected to GoPay checkout. That's it.
Okay.
And we got 7% conversion on that. So.
Oh wow.
And okay, there's something, because e-commerce is like 1-2% conversion. Right? So, okay, this is 7% without even trying. So, okay.
So I guess that was the initial launch, how it started.
That's the MVP.
That's the MVP.
Yeah.
Like how many creators were in the platform at the time?
On the MVP, 0.
0.
And then when we saw the MVP work, then we onboarded 4 creators. And then we start to open up registrations for more creators to come in. So we got 300 creators to register.
Wow.
But we selected 100 to go for the launch in October 2019. So,
2019 October.
So we formally started the company in October 2019 with 100 creators.
100 creators.
And zero income, because that's when we started. Now we have almost 300,000 creators.
That's a lot.
And our conversion rate is now 50%.
50%?
Yes.
Okay.
50.
Wow. Okay. Let me go back to your conversion rate. Like, how do you define conversion rate here?
Okay. So MAU, maybe. So people coming in, unique users coming into the web or app to transactions. So we average around 1 million MAU.
Yep.
And we average around 500,000 transactions a month. That's 50%.
It's amazing. Amazing. So I think your business is a platform business.
Yes.
Essentially, right?
Yes.
The rule of thumb of platform business is that if you can solve the supply problem, means you have the content that people want.
Yep.
The user will come.
Yes.
Is that true in Karyakarsa?
Yes. We could have started by talking to the user and the creator at the same time.
Yeah.
But we decided early on, okay, we want to focus on getting the creators on board and making sure they trust Karyakarsa, making sure they try to make money on Karyakarsa, making sure they spread their links of Karyakarsa works to their fans on their social media networks and other pages and whatever. And that's what we focused on. And we had good but okay traction.
Yep.
But the best traction came in 2021 when we found a product market fit with writers. Selling serialized stories per chapter. And that's the writers have become our largest category to date.
Okay.
So out of 300,000 creators, 60 to 70% are writers, basically, because more writers come to the platform when they find out that writers actually make money on Karyakarsa.
They actually come to the writing of the writers.
Yep.
So that's where you focus in the initial stage of Karyakarsa.
No.
Okay.
We initially started to activate comic artists.
Oh, right. Okay. So it wasn't the first category that you come up with.
I can say even today, I don't know much about the publishing industry or the IP industry. I know what I know from a distance. I'm not an active player who's been in there 10, 15 years. So I won't claim to be an expert. But what we did was we tried to help comic creators. And there was a ceiling on revenue performance on these comic creators.
Okay.
And there was not much growth in these various other categories until writers started to find a model where they could sell serialized stories.
And that's very specific.
Yes.
Writers, serial stories.
And there's a lot of serialized stories, writers in Indonesia. There's a lot.
I saw the other day on the platform, there's a lot of serial story. Why can't it be the case for, like, say, the comic writer? Because as far as I can understand, comic can be serialized.
Yes, I think it's a matter of quality. With a lot of respect for the comic creators, it's very difficult to make a good comic. You need someone to make a story. You need someone to draw it. You need someone to ink it. You need someone to color it.
Right.
And these are 4 different people, so it becomes very expensive to make a very good comic. Now, a lot of the creators on Karyakarsa are solo creators. So, for comics, it could be lacking in one of these 4. I wouldn't know. I try to be objective. But I look at the data. And I think that's one of the factors that. It's not that the comics aren't good, but not enough people are willing to pay for it. But when you compare it to writers, you just need a writer. And if the story is good, it has good hooks, and people come back next week for the new chapter, then people will pay. And that's the most important thing, I think. We started out just as a platform where you could sell content. But the sustainability is important, so it has to be content that people will willingly come back and pay for something again. We had some early product market fit with photographers selling Lightroom presets. There was a pretty high ARPU, like 100,000 rupiah per purchase.
For that,
but it's not something people come back to every month. Yes. So.
Cool. I noticed. I remember I subscribed to one of the content creators, and they're creating a video with a really interesting content in there. And is it part of a big percentage in Karyakarsa? These content creators that they usually put it on YouTube but they, instead of, just put everything on YouTube, they put some into Karyakarsa.
Well, actually, we don't officially support video because it's expensive.
Okay.
But you can upload videos to Karyakarsa. The file size limit is 256 megs.
Oh, okay.
So it's not much. It's
okay.
not much.
Okay.
So if you're able to work within those constraints, you can do it, or you could upload an unlisted YouTube link, which has the risk of being spread anyway.
Yeah, that's right.
So we're not optimized for video creators.
Yep.
And we did some research and experiments for video creators, for influencers. At that time, we don't think the pain point for these creators was high enough for them to start thinking about learning to use how to use a new platform, making different content for premium stuff like that. Something that's already pretty normal for creators on Patreon in the US.
Yep.
Because in most cases, the YouTubers or the influencers that we're talking about, they're already making money from endorsements, blah, blah, blah.
And from Instagram.
So it's less of a pain point.
That's right.
Yeah.
Compared to writers.
That's correct.
Okay. Now, with creators and pricing their work, how do you help them better monetize their content from Karyakarsa perspective?
Well, they set their own prices.
They set their own prices. Okay.
Yeah. But we have a kind of a price calculator when you upload your work, where you can figure out how many times you want to post in a month, and how many percent of your followers will you expect to convert, and what's the price, and it'll calculate how much money.
Okay. So you're actually giving them some sort of like a guidance.
There's a formula. Yeah, it's just a slider thing.
Yeah.
And the number comes out. Okay, you can make 2 million by doing this. And
so you do have some sort of guidance. So
yes,
they would either can follow the guidance, or they just my price is going to be this amount.
Yeah. Okay. And I think some market forces are at play as well, where they see other writers setting certain prices for how many words.
Yeah.
And it's often the discussion within these writers, like, if I have a 5,000 word chapter, how much do I price it? And they discuss it among themselves also.
So it would be pretty uniform.
Yeah.
How much they charge on the platform.
Yeah, because the users will also demand some price uniformity.
Yeah. And it's a competitive space anyway. Right?
Yep.
Okay. So in terms of the marketing of their content, do you guys help the creators to market their contents?
Since we only take 10% of sales, we're not directly responsible for marketing. They are. We tell them, okay, you have to do your own promotion. We're just taking 10% because we run the platform. That said, we do efforts where we either amplify the top sellers, we amplify creators that we think have good stories that need editorial exposure. And we also have a feature where the writers can advertise themselves on a homepage, basically. So they pay 5,000 rupiah. And it comes up on the home feed, basically.
So the writer can choose to do advertising on Karyakarsa as well, to be put under the main banner. I would say. Okay.
So it's not yet a perfect model yet, product, but it works for what it's intended. So it's for people to trying to get exposure.
Yeah. Because most of the if I were a writer, I would be there would be one Karyakarsa. I would be using Karyakarsa as my selling platform. But then I would go somewhere else to do my marketing, for example, right?
Yeah, your audience building. Yes.
Or the audience building. Okay. Is there when you start Karyakarsa, what was the first thing in your mind? Is IP protections? I know that you don't like the word protection in the same sentence. IP and protection seems like a oxymoron. But what have you learned when it comes to selling IPs?
Well, I understood early on because I worked in the IP industry
totally,
for a while before starting this. I understood that whatever came out of Karyakarsa would have IP implications. There would be IP brands coming out or IP that can be adapted into other formats. There would be, but I didn't know what would come out. But the IP angle was always there from the start. Back when we were still fundraising, basically. So, and not a lot of people got it because IP is, for some people, is brands. And for some people is a book becoming a movie or an OTT series, and that's probably it. And some people with better understanding that, okay, maybe a story becomes a game or a game becomes a movie, or that's also IP. When it's actually more nuanced and more, it has more variety than that. And we see that it always starts with usually a written word. It starts with a story, and most often the story has some imagery attached to it. If it has imagery attached to it, the image itself with the backstory can become an IP that has commercial value. That's why, let's say, Uniqlo partners with cows or whatever, because those images have a story to sell that can help them sell T-shirts. And we have a lot of stories on Karyakarsa where there's currently just text stories, but they have the potential to be adapted into movies, OTT series, and even our current new format, Cinemini, microdrama, where we just launched last month. That's going to be part of our future initiative business. Or we see the market is there, and we have the story, so we're going to go that way. But we think that the wealth of IP that's on Karyakarsa has to be properly managed and properly represented. And that's why even way back in 2022, we started an IP management initiative where writers, if they want, if they need to, they can assign us as the IP manager for their stories. And we're the ones who are going to be going out to people, hey, this is a good story that can become a movie. So we go to production house, or we go to an OTT. Even actually next week there's a film market where we're going to be representing an IP there. For the purpose of selling that IP to be adapted to another format. So if the IP is represented well, the creator is protected. So I think the more suitable term is actually creator protection, not IP protection.
Creator protections.
And one of the things that I think is important is managing expectations on what the IP can yield, basically. And piracy, of course,
it's a big issue.
It's a big issue. It comes hand in hand with the phrase IP protection. And there's IP protection that's protected by the law. And there's IP protection that's protected by tech, where I think law is law. But IP protection by tech is something, it's a losing game. It's an arms war, basically. You need to develop better tech, which piracy will overcome. Then you go on and on and on.
It's never-ending
it's a never-ending pattern when the focus should be on how to protect the creator, to make sure they make the best use of their IP, they make the best decisions on the IP, and they focus on the people that want to pay. I think that's clear. I mean, ice cream company will never worry about people who will not buy ice cream. They will probably put ads to remind, hey, we have ice cream that you want. But the conversion rates are focused on the mini markets where you have the POS displays where on the ice box where the ice cream looks really good. And that's where the conversion happens. And they would focus on that. So why not for IP?
Right. So say if I were a writer, let's say that I'm a writer, how should I think of my IP to begin with? Does it have to be, originality of my stories, for example? How can you tell that my IP is, I don't know, maybe worth something, or it's worth protecting, or, like...
Okay. I guess, as from a writer's perspective, how to go about it is not seeing if the work is worth protecting or not, because it becomes a self-confidence issue, and a lot of creators encounter this self-confidence issue: is my work worth enough? And this was a problem early on, where the writers set very low prices for their work.
I see.
And we tried to get them, hey, you just don't sell at 2,000, at least 5,000 or something like that. But if you as a writer, you should focus on how to make the best story that you know, and that might have people wanting to pay for it.
Okay.
That's the best thing.
Okay.
The second best thing from me as a person in the commercial business would be having a story that people love.
Yeah.
So you develop that, and at some point, if you have a story that people love, people will be willing to pay for it. I think Karyakarsa have played a part where there was a shift between people who don't want to pay for anything in content, and now people are willing to pay.
To value the good content.
Yes.
Yep.
That's a litmus test for writers. If they have a story that at some point people are willing to pay for it.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
And then after that, it becomes a decision on does the writer want to commercialize further? Do I want to expand my audience? Do I want to write all my life and so on? But the protections actually happen automatically with the current copyright laws. Once you publish on Karyakarsa, it's actually technically already covered. Yeah.
Okay.
And it's you can also register to the copyright board, but it's not required, because once you publish it to the public, it's already protected by law. Okay. Then the only other worry is whether it's protected by tech, and that's.
But who's going to the other question that I have? That's the burning question that I have. Who's going to enforce the IP law?
That's a good question, which I don't have a good answer to. In most cases, the readers will help the writers say, "Hey, there's a similar story. There's a similar story there," which similar doesn't mean plagiarism, yeah.
Yes.
But sometimes people conflate those two. There are systems that exist that can identify plagiarism, but currently, let's say if a person were to upload something on Karyakarsa, and then Karyakarsa would say, "Hey, there's a 100% match to a story on another platform." That's impossible.
Yeah,
that's impossible.
Yeah.
That would take up much more resources than we have. So usually it's by public participation, so people can report. Okay. I think reporting content is a common feature. It's required by Apple and Google anyway. Okay. If it's copyright infringement and so on. So we go by reports. Okay. And since most often copyright law goes into civil laws, it's by people complaints basically.
Right. Okay. So it's coming from the fans or the reader
or the writer.
They'll notify Karyakarsa.
Yes.
And then Karyakarsa will take action.
Yes. Okay. But there's no system in place that says, okay, this is against law, we'll take it down preemptively. We don't do that at scale. We do check content. We do random checks of content if there's some
similarities,
some possibility of copyright infringements. But I think platforms that have these copyright protections in place are super huge. Like Instagram and YouTube, and it's usually only for music and video. and probably nobody else.
Yeah, it should be a big tech that can actually
Yes.
capture all that.
Yes.
Okay. Now, I'm not sure if Indonesia has IP law problems, but I heard that messy story within music industries. What's your thought on that? Since you were in the music industries before, I've heard quite a bit of saying from musicians that they're not getting enough from their royalties from their musics. And what's your thought on that?
Copyright and music copyright is very complicated.
Yeah.
It's not as clear cut as movies, for instance. So,
Okay.
Because there are royalties, there are several types of royalties, several types of rights, and several types of creative artists that need to be paid these royalties. It's not just the songwriters. There's also the artist. There's also the arranger. There's also the producer, and so on.
Many
and so on.
parties
Many
involved,
parties.
yeah.
It comes down. I think it's awareness of what goes where and how much money is actually going in the industry and who's distributing it.
Yeah.
Because let's take one case. I remember one of the more prominent cases is about usage of a song from a certain songwriter by another band, and then the songwriter said, "Hey, you're not allowed to do that unless you pay directly to this writer." The problem is the law doesn't state that this is allowed. You have to go through a mediating company that's called it's called a collecting society. And the collecting society is supposed to collect fees from concerts, from venues, from restaurants, hotels, and stuff like that for usage of music that's broadcasted to the public for commercial gain. So it's if you sell a CD, that's direct commercial gain, and there's always a royalty cut for everyone. But if it's broadcast to the public, there's no direct commercial gain by playing the music. But because the venue is playing music, people come and they're happy and they spend money. Then the venue has to pay money, basically. For it's called public performance license. And the thing about having artists saying you have to pay me directly is only the big artists can do it, because they're the ones who can have leverage and can enforce. What happens to the songwriters that don't have this system? That's why the collecting society is
helping them.
Is the better system, because it helps all the songwriters, regardless if you're popular or not. And I think a lot of commotion about this was basically saber-rattling in the media. I'm big, I'm popular, you have to ask me for permission. Permission maybe yes, but even the law states if it's a public performance and not a recording, they don't really have to ask permission, actually. They just have to pay the performing fee, basically.
Performing fee, okay.
But if they say nobody can play my songs aside from me, they can do it, and they pull their authorization to these collecting societies. My song cannot be played anywhere
by anyone.
So it's opt out, actually. That can happen. They have to officially say okay, any collection of this song has to go directly to me. But then he has to manage his own collecting society. And to say this and claim to be on behalf of all songwriters, I think is ingenuine.
Interesting. That is very interesting. I think I can totally see the complications when it comes to public performance. Like how can you tell? Like there's a I just can't picture the complications that happening.
It's crazy complicated.
It's crazy complicated, right? Like no one ever can actually pin it down to okay, this is the solution. Let's move forwards.
I think there was a solution. The current copyright law was made in 2014, and it lays out all these rules for the collecting societies. And what needs to happen between people doing the public performance license of the songs. They need to report to the collecting agency, blah, blah. So that hasn't happened actually at scale. So, but you can't leave it up to just the collecting societies. The event organizers or the venues need to be proactive in, hey, we're playing these songs, you provide a song list, and then you pay like a yearly license to be able to play these songs. And if that happens at scale, then it's better. So I think the musicians should be able to remind all these venues, hey, you need to make sure your public performance license is up to par, that you have a license that you're paying, or else I'm not going to play at your venue.
Yeah.
I think that's a better approach rather than gaslighting.
Okay, it's a complicated matters.
Yes.
I can totally see it. Now, let's go back to Karyakarsa. You've been working on the company since 2019.
Yep.
2019. What's your vision to grow internationally? I think you mentioned before the session that you starting to see buyers or users coming from overseas.
Yep.
Is this part of your larger vision going forward?
Well, I'd like to be very honest with myself at least, and differentiate between vision and ambition.
Let's hear it.
My ambition would be a pan Southeast Asian company that will have content from, let's say, a Vietnamese writer will be able to sell to a Philippine reader, and there's no latency in a translation.
Okay.
And also be able to have that story adapted into various formats and into various languages, and we become the neighbor to all of that. So you can imagine what kind of size that we want to aim, being able to do that. And you can imagine the kind of hurdles where we want to get there. So that's the ambition. It's similar to the vision, but I think the vision is more grounded, where we start with 1 country and 2 country and 3 country. I think the problem would be language, I think.
Yep.
And another problem we see is, if we're talking about companies that grow beyond their borders, then we need to be more realistic about how it's going to play out like 10, 15 years down the line. Yeah. Because there's not many of these pan Southeast Asian media companies. What happened there? Is there not much opportunity, or is it too difficult? Yeah. Or there's just enough opportunity in each one country to just sustain these media companies? Yeah. So these are the questions, and since we're a tech startup, we still have to be able to say, okay, our exit scenario is this, and my ideal exit scenario would be that Southeast Asian media company. Yep. But then the question would be, where would such company have an IPO, right? And that's a question, I think, because I don't think a pan Southeast Asian company would still not be big enough to say IPO at the New York Stock Exchange, for instance. Could be at Hang Seng, but honestly, I haven't thought that far. Yep. But these scenarios are things that I actively try to figure out, okay, what route do I take? Because if I know which route to take, then it's less homework for me down the line. For sure. Basically.
But when you trying to execute the ambitions, how does it look like? Can you kind of like picture it for me? You're saying that the creator will come from different Southeast Asian countries, and then the readers can come from anywhere. So us as an Indonesian, we can read writings or novels, serialized novel from people from Thai writer, for example, without the needs for the Thai writer to
write in Indonesian.
To translate it, to have an effort to translate it, so we can still enjoy their work. That's what you meant?
Yes, that's the first level, and then the next would be the various adaptation works, and then I think the highest level that we could achieve is becoming that creator VC company I was talking about, where the creators had advanced enough to become their own IP companies. Then we invest in those IP, basically.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a good idea, because since you're a platform, you kind of know which stories that
Yeah,
really
yeah.
resonates.
Yeah, we're
with the
basically
readers, right?
providing commercial measurability to these IP at an early
Mm.
scale. So that at some point it'll be 2024 for stories.
Yeah.
Like today is 2024 for tech startups currently. So you know how the spreadsheet works on a VC level, and you know, okay, this model works, this model doesn't. So
Yeah.
that didn't happen without the VCs spending their school money in
Exactly.
12. So
That's right.
right now we're not spending that much school money, but we have that commercial viability, and we're pushing through not just the serialized story model for the text model, but also for other formats.
Yeah.
So we're going to push that to the level where we can put monetary value, commercial value on stories.
Yeah.
And this can become a retirement plan for creators, which is the holy grail, actually.
That's right.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of curious though. Specifically in Indonesia, you're saying that serialized story works.
Yeah.
And can you tell us like what's the genre that actually really resonate with the Indonesian readers?
Can you take a guess?
I would say horror and love stories.
Yes, you're correct.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I was just trying to
Yes.
see. Like I guess the way I see it is that I'm looking at bands, right? I'm looking at bands, and if the bands are like kind of playing musics that's not about love, breaking heart, and all that, they're most likely not gonna be as big.
Yep.
So I'm trying to apply that assumption and asking you.
Yeah.
So it's still the biggest.
You can see it with what you see on TV, local TV.
Right.
You can
right.
see what local movies sell well in the cinema.
Yeah, it's always horror
and love stories.
That's it.
And I think it's a good thing. That means we have found the genre that Indonesia has expertise in, and actually Southeast Asia. Horror and love stories is very Asian
Kind
thing.
of maybe. Yeah.
And the horror is usually very specific, and the love stories are usually very specific. It has to be local, and it's different than the Hollywood love stories, if you understand. So it's a good thing that there's repetition in these genres. That means there's a lot of people coming on board into these industry genres, I would say.
Yep.
And that means there's expertise spreading.
Right.
And the important thing about the expertise spreading is that means the industry has the potential to spread as well, to get more people. And if there's more people involved producing stuff, there's more money coming into the industry, and we'll be able to reach that dream of having a creator middle class. And that's one of the top goals of most creator economy companies, actually, that creator middle class.
Interesting.
So
interesting.
It hasn't really happened for music.
Yep.
Because a musician today would still be competing with Gigi or Slank.
Yep.
But if we have a good cycle of writers coming in, making money, then they start to mentor other writers, then they start to make money, blah blah blah. That's basically how the U.S. entertainment industry.
Would you say that we're heading towards like how South Korea looks like today? Like, because they're really big on the K-drama, they're big on the all music, K-pop, and that. Would you see ourselves going into that direction?
No, actually not. At least not yet, because there was some purposeful actions made by the Korean and South Koreans and the Southeast Korean government by this is where we want the industry to go, this is blah blah blah. So there's some direction.
So the key word here is purposeful.
Yes.
Okay.
And currently, I think the creative economy at large in Indonesia is still more how can we make money today, and that's it.
Yep.
There's no direction. In 10 years this
it's not a collective effort.
There's no collective effort yet. I see there are collective efforts here and there, but it hasn't become a blueprint for, okay, this is where we want to go as an industry. There's no discussion there because maybe because Indonesia is so big, there's a lot of smart people, and smart people usually don't agree with each other, and then it stops there. And it's unfortunate when there's a lot of potential, and there's a lot of people that can be touched by a well-structured industry with a good direction to go.
Because I was just it came to my mind just then, because you mentioned about how we keep repeating the stories. We already define the genre that we love, such as horror and love stories, right? I think there should be a possibility that we are heading towards where how South Korea looks like. They're making a super nice K-drama, for example, and they big outside of Korea, right? So it's I don't know. I have my hope that we eventually gonna go there. But you're right. I think the collective effort is not there yet, and we don't know when, if it's not initiated by government, I guess.
Yeah, probably government or an industry body, because
industry bodies.
Let's say Sinetron. Sinetron has been around for years and years and years, and this quality has been like that for years and years and years. And if there's no conscious effort on all the players saying, okay, Sinetron needs to get it up a notch, the quality needs to be better, blah blah blah, and all the TV stations would not be too worry about fighting about ratings when everybody's trying to push the quality up. Then maybe something would happen. But now people are busy with the competition, which is a reality of life. I don't know. I wouldn't know what to do in their shoes. I wouldn't know, but that's what I think should be happening, and that's what at least what we're trying to do is we're trying to level up all these IPs that are on Karyakarsa by doing adaptation, by finding ways to get it into other countries, for instance.
And I think that's actually a good segue to my next questions on that one. Is that what stops these creators to sell their content, their IPs overseas?
Usually it's language. The other point is a network. Okay. Traditionally, a writer would need a literary agent. So basically like an agent for a band, but for writers. So this guy would need to go to book markets overseas to offer the story to be sold to overseas publishers. And usually the overseas publishers would ask, okay, who's going to take care of the translation costs? And it's expensive. A good fiction book to be translated into other language is very expensive. You can't use Google Translate or ChatGPT to translate. But if it's non-fiction, maybe it's easier. But fiction, you really can't.
Because you really need to translate it correctly, otherwise you lose the meanings. Like I think I am talking about the translations. I just read Vegetarian. It's a Korean book that's becoming like a hit after some controversies, and the way she translated it, I think, I don't know, because I can't compare with the Korean, but I think it was a very difficult job to actually translate it into English. So I think that's the point of you're saying that you
remember a three buddy problem.
The Chinese.
It took another author to make sure that the English translation isn't the same spirit of the original. And that was a tough work. That was a tough novel to translate. Definitely. So.
So the cost is pretty high.
So the cost and difficulty level is pretty high. So hopefully at some point all these large language models will be able to help us out with that, but that also comes at a cost. We might want to figure it out within the next 2 years on how to use these systems, and not lose the spirit of the translation.
Of the translations, exactly.
But yeah, as it stands, that's what usually holds back most writers to get overseas distribution.
I see. Yeah. Okay, that is very interesting. Okay, I think, yeah, bro, thank you so much for coming to Nalar Bicara. Hopefully, I'm pretty sure a lot of people will now kind of understand like what's Karyakarsa is about and what's the IP challenges that we face. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.